Just accept that sometimes you're going to get knocked down, but it's just important to be able to get back up and get back on with things.
Because our thoughts influence our actions and our behaviors and ultimately lead to our outcomes.
I love the idea that we're not only trying to improve ourselves, but we're trying to help other people along the road.
Welcome to the Strength Changes Everything podcast, where we introduce you to the information, latest research, and tools that will enable you to live a strong, healthy life. On this podcast, we will also answer your questions about strength, health, and well-being. I'm Amy Hudson. I own and operate 3 exercise coach studios. My co-hosts are Brian Sagan, co-founder and CEO of The Exercise Coach, and Dr. James Fisher, leading researcher in evidence-based strength training. And now for today's episode.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Strength Changes Everything podcast. Hey, something we hear all of the time from clients and people who are checking out our exercise coach studios is that they struggle to stay motivated. You know, it's very natural to struggle to motivate yourself to take healthy actions, to work out sometimes. Motivation is one of the biggest obstacles that people cite in sticking with or starting a healthy habit or exercise program. So this episode is all about some tips for digging into the motivation that will help you to make the healthy choices that you're looking to do. We've got a few different tips. We've got 5 tips to help you stay motivated in your fitness journey and in your health journey, and we're going to cover those. And as we talk through each one, we'll give you some examples, and we'll even share some personal insights as well that have helped Dr. Fisher and myself in our personal journeys as well. So hope you enjoyed today's episode. We're going to dive in with our first point. So Dr. Fisher, you are the Chief Science Officer here. You're going to be sharing these points, and then I'll help elaborate on each one. But let's just jump right in with the first point. So what would you say would be the number one tip that you would have to share with our listeners about staying motivated?
So first of all, I think that any kind of tips that people have around staying motivated, people might have their own kind of key things that work for them. These are 5 tips that we have, and people might find that some of them work and some of them don't necessarily work for them. But these are things that we both have tried and work for us, and we know work for other clients, and there's some kind of evidence around. So the first tip is to schedule. If you schedule something in your calendar, you are far, far more likely to do it than if you don't schedule it. We were talking before the podcast that today at some point I'm going to do my strength training workout. And in the UK now it's 10 to 4 in the afternoon and I still haven't done my workout. So, and we've already said that after we record this podcast, I might end up having to check emails again and carry on with some other work that I wanted to do. And it might be that I get to 8 p.m. and I end up doing my workout then. And the reality is that's okay. But if I had set a time today to do it, if I'd scheduled it, then I know that I would have penned down, email off for that time, and I would have gone with that workout for the 30 minutes that it would take. And that's it. So yeah, absolutely. Scheduling something into your diary is so important.
Yeah, I love the quote by James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. He says, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." If you think about the rhythm of your week, the rhythm of your day, think about when you feel the most awake, when you're least likely to be distracted, maybe the least likely to be tired, and try to plug your workouts into those consistent times each week. Take the guesswork out of when you're going to work out by scheduling it even at the same day and the same time when you know that you're not going to run into obstacles to going and doing your workout, right? The repetition and execution of healthy habits is the difference between those people who reach their goals and those people who do not. So figure out when you can do your workout and schedule it in and obey it. And just also one other tip I have for you is, even if you schedule your workout, you may not always feel like going, but executing and following through with the plan that you made tells yourself that you're the type of person who follows through on your plans, and it encourages you and gives you more confidence to keep going. Just do it, okay? So that's tip number 1, is to schedule it in. All right, what's number 2?
Yeah. So tip number two is to create a target or find some kind of challenge to join. And this might be individual or it might be with friends or family. And it can really be anything you want it to be. A lot of people will hear that and they'll think, oh, well, I want to lose 10 pounds, or oh, I want to increase my strength, or I want to go for a run. But what about not missing 10 workouts in a row? Or what about not having junk food for 10 days? What about no potato chips for 10 days? And then see how long you can extend that streak for. Or what about trying to make sure you get 8 hours sleep a night for the next week? It can be anything that you want it to be, as long as it's something ideally measurable, something that you can track, something that you can see whether you're successful or not. You can, gauge success on. Um, Creating something, some kind of target, some kind of motivation, some kind of incentive for healthy habit, I think can be really important for people.
And you've mentioned before on other episodes to focus on process, not on the outcome. And so, an example of focusing on the process could be I'm going to do 2 strength training workouts this week. And there's something so satisfying about checking it, clicking a checkbox that you did that. I read in a book recently that has to do with scheduling that, think about sporting events. The reason there's so much excitement the entire time at a sporting event is because there's a score being kept and everybody knows what that score is the entire time. And so they're motivated to keep working as hard as they can to win because they see that number of what that score is the entire time. When you can score yourself, keep score, or keep track in some way to know if you're winning or losing, that is extremely motivating. So, for example, you might find it satisfying to put in your planner the workouts and then highlight those yellow after you've done those, even that little gesture or checking those off. You can track progress on the workouts themselves. We have a app at our exercise coach studios. Use the app to track your performance over time. Um, Checking those things off and celebrating those little wins every week, the process can be super, super motivating.
Yeah, I think this is really important. And I think that, we talked about the idea of weight loss or strength increases or things like that. Of course, if you choose a weight loss goal or a fat loss goal, you want to lose 10 pounds. Well, you can't just write down the goal of lose 10 pounds and then not do anything. You can't not change anything. So you then have to have something in the process. You have to change something in what you're doing, whether that's to increase your energy expenditure, whether that's to go for a walk every day, or to go for a jog, or to go for a walk with friends, engage in strength training, or to change your dietary habits, whatever it might be. But there has to be some kind of process in there. And as you said, I'm a big believer in the process or following the process. And I really think that once we engage in that as a habit, we talked about the first goal, as scheduling, and we said about getting things into our week as part of a habit. I think once our habits become good, whether that's in diet or in exercise, they're easier to maintain over the long period. And eventually they become something that we almost can't do without. They're just ingrained within our life. They become part of our identity to some extent. So I think that it's really important to have that process around those goals.
Yes. And just to expand a little bit more about tracking your progress or participating in a challenge, we talked a little bit before about a 30-day metabolic comeback challenge that we offer at the Exercise Coach Studios. What it is 30 days of combining whole food eating with twice weekly workouts in a concentrated period of time. We do a before and an after body composition scan for all of our clients to track the difference that they experience in those 30 days when they dedicate themselves to that. And there's a huge social component in a Facebook group where people are daily sharing tips, sharing ideas, sharing wins. If you have experienced a win and you share that with somebody else, or maybe teach somebody else about what you're learning, that really does help reinforce it to you. And the social element cannot be overstated. Gather, other people or participate in social based challenges And that really, really can help you glean the motivation that you need, maybe even from others. Sometimes we have to borrow somebody else's motivation when we can't conjure that up on our own. And that's okay too, right? We need one another in this journey. And so that's what it's all about. What's the next tip?
So our third tip is gather friends. So, I love this one. I love the idea that we're not only trying to improve ourselves, but we're trying to help other people along the road. So it might be that we're trying to engage in more, as you said, maybe nutritional habits or sleep habits. So we might talk to our partner, our husband, our wife, our kids about going to bed early and the importance of sleep. And we might do that as a household, or it might be about cutting junk food as a household, or maybe about contacting friends and going for walks, or engaging in semi-private workouts, getting your friends to come along and engage in strength training with you. There's a real kind of social affiliation around strength training with other people that we're close to. And the idea that we are kind of, I'm going through this experience, it's hard, but I'm going through it, and you're there with me, and you're going through it, and so forth. And of course, the reality is if you're training at the exercise coach, then you've got a coach there by your side anyway. So there's that kind of motivation and inspiration and that kind of social element as well. But I do really love the idea that you can make healthy choices for yourself and get other people to be kind of cheerleaders with you, or kind of boost your motivation and engagement in those habits.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is very evident that the the more social support somebody has, the more likely they are to succeed. I remember the first time I completed a 30-day metabolic challenge with my husband. I think if he was not doing that with me, I would have just fallen off the bandwagon because we had the accountability of doing that together, and it was very difficult. It was a challenge. I felt sugar withdrawals and things like that. It was difficult, right? And so when things get difficult, if you're left to your own, it's so easy to talk yourself out of things, right? And so you need that. And so when people around you support you, that really can help you, like we just mentioned. And then the flip side to that too, just to if you're listening to this, if your social circle is really not valuing health or fitness, or if you have people in your life that are perhaps, trying to dissuade you or, not supportive of your healthy habits or kind of trying to tempt you into unhealthy lifestyle behaviors that you're trying not to do, you might need to set some boundaries with those individuals because they're not supportive of what you are trying to do. And so you need to get another group of people around you, even if it's just your coach to report to initially, to help you, make those right choices for yourself and not to get dragged down away from what you're trying to do.
Right. So the impact of our social group is quite drastic, especially in, as we've said, exercise and nutritional habits. So the example that I was used to give to my students is that as students, I used to say, if you go out for a meal, would you order dessert? Would you order, cake or ice cream, or would you order some kind of dessert? And these are all health and fitness students. They said, no, no, I would never order dessert. I said, okay. Well, now imagine if I take you all out for dinner, and while we're sat there at dinner, I ordered dessert. Now what are you gonna do? And they go, "Well, yeah, okay, I'd be more inclined to order dessert now because I know I'm gonna have to sit and wait at the end of the meal and kind of watch you eat this ice cream or this cake." And I said, "Okay." And now imagine that I offered that I'm gonna pay for the meal and I'm gonna pay for dessert. Well, of course, that again immediately changes habits. So our social gathering and our social groups and this kind of interaction can really influence our habits, can really influence the decisions that we make. So if we do have a friend who always says, hey, let's go to insert fast food joint here, then maybe that's somebody who you don't want to spend time having meals with. Maybe that's somebody who you want to catch up for coffee but not engage in mealtime with. Or maybe you want to talk to them about helping to change their habits as well, and engaging in healthier food choices, things like that. But I think we can all kind of realize that the people that we spend time with can certainly influence our habits.
Awesome. I totally agree. Okay, so far, just to recap, we've talked about scheduling in our calendar. We've talked about creating targets to track or a challenge to join. We've talked about gathering friends to support us. All right, those are the first three we talked about. We've got two more tips. What is number four?
Okay. So number four is an obvious one because everybody's already doing this, but it's listen to the podcast. Okay. So we've talked about routine, we've talked about process, we've talked about healthy habits. And I think this is an obvious one, but if you're listening to this podcast, if you get excited to listen to this podcast, whether it's on a Tuesday on the day it drops, or whether it's at some point later in the week, then it helps you to see yourself as somebody who is engaging in this kind of a lifestyle, in exercise, in health, in good nutrition, and so forth. So you'll identify as somebody who engages in healthy lifestyles, and you'll do that anyway. But you could also use the podcast to go for a walk and listen to podcasts when you're on a walk or on a run or sat on an exercise bike or something like that. So use the podcast as something that you can take 20 minutes or so out of your day to do some low level cardiovascular exercise or high intensity cardiovascular exercise if you can exercise and listen to the podcast. But engaging in the podcast is constantly hopefully giving you that good advice as to how to improve your health and how strength training and exercise as a whole improves your health, but is also helping you identify as somebody who engages in healthy habits.
Yes. I mean, I hope as a listener to this podcast, you have had that experience of being motivated by something you've heard that inspired you. Yes, this is what I want for myself. Yes, this is working. Yes, there's science to back up these behaviors that I'm engaging in as a strength training client. Yes, I want to keep this up. This is what we want for you. And I've told you, when you know better, you can do better. That is just something that's been a theme for me personally. If I've learned something new, I have a motivation that pops up right away to take action on it because I found out something that would help me. And so now I want to take that action on it because I want that outcome for myself. Maybe I didn't know that before, and now I know it. One example I've given is reading the nutrition playbook at the exercise coach, understanding what dairy, grains, alcohols, sugars maybe do, how inflammation works, what it all means in terms of health. I did not know that before. Once I learned that, I was motivated to say, yeah, I want this for myself. I don't want that for myself. And that's what inspired me to start eating better. And it inspired me now, it set me on a trajectory along with my strength training for a healthier metabolism. That was 10 years ago. I truly don't know where I would be today, metabolically speaking or health wise, if I hadn't done that. And so, tapping into as much positive, helpful information as you can to inspire your action is going to help you, if you're anything like me. James, do you have any examples like that as well in your life where you've learned something and then it inspired you to make a change or to take a different action or to think differently?
Yeah, I mean, on a day-to-day level, every time we record this podcast and talk about healthy habits, or we talk about some of the health benefits of strength training, it inspires me to go away and do a workout. I'm almost chomping at the bit to go away and do a strength training session. That one of the last podcasts we recorded, which listeners will have heard by now, was on myokines. And when I think about the health benefits of myokines, it makes me want to go out and lift weights. It makes me want to go and strength train. So there's that kind of thing. But there's also, I have an experience with passive learning. I love the concept of kind of passive learning. So we've talked about listening to the podcast while you're walking. You're not maybe intentionally trying to make notes and focus on details specifically. But as far as passive learning goes, when I was a student, I used to stick things on the back of my bedroom door. So I, for example, stuck an anatomy chart on the back of my bedroom door, and I seldom, if ever, stopped to read the anatomy, the muscles and the bones and nervous system and so forth. But I opened and closed that door over and over again, and I, took in that information. So I think that we can really embrace kind of learning as part of our existence. We're designed to learn. We're designed to take information in. So I love the idea of kind of listening to a podcast or engaging in learning, reading the metabolic comeback book and things like that. So to help us to support our healthy lifestyle.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so that was number 4. Listen to the podcast and dig into that motivation, the resources available. What is the last one?
Okay. So the last one's an easy one. It's something that I really want to make everybody engage with right now if they can. So if you're sat listening to it, I want you to grab a post-it or grab a note or grab a piece of paper, grab something, and I want you to write a positive message. And it can be a positive message about you. It can be something that you can do or that you can achieve or you can accomplish, or it could be just a quote that you've heard somewhere or something that somebody famous once said, some sort of inspirational or positive quote. I think there's so much negativity in the world. I often joke that I try to avoid watching the news because it's filled with some of the terrible things that are happening in the world. But actually, we can surround ourselves and especially our workplace and our home life with a really positive environment by providing sort of visual reminders or quotes um, that are inspiring, that are motivating, that will kind of cheer us up and bring positivity to our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I've learned years ago is that our brains do have something called a negativity bias. What that means is that they're always looking for problems. They're always looking for dangers and scanning the world to focus on what could go wrong, what is going wrong, and it's a protective mechanism that we have to focus on that so that we can ideally, obviously, come up with a solution or a plan if that were to happen. But we can get very bogged down in those anxious um, ruminations or just negativity. And so we have to counteract that sometimes by leading our own selves in terms of what we want to think, because our thoughts influence our actions and our behaviors and ultimately lead to our outcomes. So start in your own mind and help your mind think about what is going to help you take the right kinds of actions that you're trying to take. And those visual reminders help us set our mind in the right place. So thinking about putting something up that will inspire you.
Yeah. I'm gonna get the ball rolling for some listeners with a couple of
Yeah.
quotes, if that's okay. So
Yeah.
one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know who to attribute this to, so that's terrible. If you're listening and the first person that said this, I apologize for not attributing it to you. But one of my favorite quotes right now is anticipation is worse than participation. So it's this idea that we kind of have this thing that we want to do, but we're so scared of what it might cost us to do it, the energy for maybe training for a long run or um, what might happen if I don't know, my son does diving and he jumped off a 7-meter diving board yesterday. So it's that fear of doing the task, the anticipation of doing it, the fear of doing it is worse than the participation. He got out of the water afterwards and he was overjoyed. He was really excited that he'd done it. Um, so, a lot of the time, the anticipation, the fear of it is way worse than actually just doing the task. So, if you've got something that you want to accomplish, there you go. Don't be scared of doing it. Just engage in doing it. Just follow a process and go after it. And then my second quote, I think, is attributed to Muhammad Ali. And it doesn't matter if you get knocked down. It only matters if you don't get back up. And I think that's really important because we all have setbacks. We all have things that will knock us down, whether it's things in work, it's things in life, whether it's things in our habits, whether we miss a workout, whether we miss a good day of healthy food, whether we kind of fall off the wagon and have bad health, bad nutritional choices in a day. But ultimately, it's about correcting that choice and moving back on the next day or with the next meal or whatever it might be. So I think it's really important to just accept that sometimes you're going to get knocked down, but it's just important to be able to get back up and get back on with things.
I love those. I really love those. They really tap into the human experience, right? We're all trying to do our best, and we may, have fears about things, we may have setbacks, we may not feel like it. It doesn't mean we quit, right? I love those. Those are really, really good. I love that. So, of these 5 points that we've just made, or these 5 tips, again, Post-it notes or helpful words that we can look at, um, listen to the podcast, so, like, delving into knowledge that inspires us to make change, gathering friends around us to support us in our healthy habits, creating targets or finding some kind of challenge to complete, and scheduling it into your calendar. Dr. Fisher, I wonder which of these has been most helpful to you over the years, and why is that?
Okay. Thank you for putting me on the spot. Let me think. So, probably two of them are the most significant for me. And I think on a micro level, scheduling is really important. I know that if I schedule a workout, if I schedule a task, if I schedule a meal, if I prepare a meal, things like that, if I give that forethought and that planning to something, then I know that I can stick to it. It's easy to do. But that's certainly on a micro level. I think on a macro level, probably creating a target or finding a challenge can be really motivating to me. In the past, I've done triathlon and half Ironman and things like that, and I know that if I picked right now that I was going to do a marathon next year or even this year, then I would start going out for a run much more regularly. I'll start engaging in much more consistent exercise habits. I might be more particular about my nutritional habits and maintaining my weight or a healthy weight or reducing my body fat and so forth. So having a target can be really good. But I also love that kind of long-term, day-to-day setting setting a goal of, okay, how many hours of sleep did I get today? For example, right now, one of my big focuses is to get over 8 hours of sleep a night. And every morning I track it on my Garmin, as good as a Garmin could be. And every morning I look at my Garmin and I look at how much sleep I got. And I think, yeah, great. That's another day that I got over 8 hours of sleep. And then I look at, I'm just bringing it up now because I want to share this because I'm so excited by it. But then I look over the last 4 weeks and I say, how many days in a row have I successfully done this? And I'm going to show this to the camera right now for anybody listening. There's my streak of the green ones are the days that I've had 8 hours sleep. So I'm on a 16-day streak now of 8 hours of sleep every night. So I think creating a streak and then trying to stick to that and trying to extend that personally for me is a really good one. So those are my two. How about
I
you,
love
Amy?
that. Okay, so first of all, one other comment. So, if you're a person who really isn't as internally motivated as James here and like seeing that streak, one other like step on top of that, if you struggle, is to send that streak to somebody else as in a piece of accountability, right? Like if you know yourself well enough to know like you your little demon on this shoulder talks you out of the angel's advice on this shoulder, and you just always listen to the demon, then include somebody else in the conversation, right? And so, that's just one thing I thought of. Maybe you can text that to me, James, next time when you get a bad day so I can make fun of you. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that. Um, I would say for me, the most helpful things when I first got started in my journey of health, fitness, and nutrition, it was the knowledge, is learning new things, is sort of like knowing better, consuming information because that was so motivating to me. I already talked about why that was. And then over time, I would say nowadays, it is just more about this consistency and the scheduling it in. And it's normal for a motivate like what motivated me 10 years ago, it may not be the same thing that motivates me today because I've learned that and I believe it and I'm passionate about it still, but it's not the same thing that's going to get me out of my house over to my studio and working out. It's scheduling it now. And that's totally okay if your motivator changes over the years. That's normal and natural. And so, what may be working for you now may not be working in a few months. And that's why we've given you multiple ideas today in this podcast to choose from. And having more than one strategy in your life is important for this kind of stuff. Any final closing comments, Dr. Fisher, for the listeners about motivation?
No, I think we've covered everything that we wanted to cover today.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing these tips with us. I hope one of these really stands out to you, at least if you're listening to this and you've learned something new and can take that and use that as fuel to take the next right step in your fitness journey and your health journey today and for the next several days and years of your life. We're with you. We're cheering you on as part of this podcast. Keep listening every week. We will see you next time on the podcast. Hope you remember, strength changes everything.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. You can submit a question or connect with the show at strengthchangeseverything.com. Join us next week for another episode, and be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss another episode. Here's to you and your best health.